West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's Thursday, September 11th, 2025. I'm not sure I can.
It's a hard day for us. Yeah.
My friend Charlie Kirk's dead.
Yeah, and you knew him personally. I never had met him personally, so I don't have the same relationship or the same reflections that you do. So, yeah.
We're going to do our best today. Charlie was a member of the Salem family. Probably the biggest show, one of the biggest shows we had on this entire network. Right after ours was the Charlie Kirk show. And an incredible young man, dead at the age of 31, assassinated yesterday in Utah. And I've opened up the phone lines today because many of us knew Charlie very well. It was a guy that we came up together in the movement, building our careers, friends for well over a decade, and went through life together. Watched football games together. My son and him were hanging out watching the CU Oregon Ducks game 2 years ago, this month actually, at a friend's house. And my son got to spend all afternoon with Charlie Kirk, one of the best moments of his life. My wife and I were at the Turning Point inaugural gala in January. Charlie was a regular speaker at the Western Conservative Summit I hosted for 8 years. It was one of the largest gatherings of conservatives in the Western United States. We held it here in Denver each year. President Trump was a part of it. We would bring in roughly 50 or so speakers a year. And Charlie was a regular. Almost every year I hosted it. I watched him build Turning Point. We talked about building Turning Point. I shared strategy memos with him on the advancement of Turning Point. I served on his advisory committee. He was absolutely one of the best. I will get to, I just had to take time to write last night my thoughts about him and the importance that Charlie Kirk had towards the American story, what we're trying to build here, what this country is all about, what we inherited, what has been built, what will continue to be, his vision. All that was something I got to see up close and personal from a wonderful, wonderful man. And so I've said yesterday, when we had a number of guests lined up, I just said, folks, we'll get to that in future shows. I need a day to hear from people. If you were impacted by Charlie Kirk, if you have thoughts about Charlie Kirk, if you have thoughts about what happened, what's going to happen, where we're going to go, phone lines are open today. It would help me to hear from you. It would help me to understand the impact he had. I know what his impact was in my life, but for what we are all working towards, and what this is all about, what I get up to do 4 hours a day, what I've devoted my professional career to, the advancement of America's founding principles, the role that faith played in his life, all of that is open today, and I would love to hear from you. I've asked some of Colorado's most conservative leaders to call in throughout the morning as well. We'll hear from them, but it's open lines today. 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Also, tragedy yesterday with the shooting in Evergreen High School, if you'd like to talk about that as well. And then you have the anniversary of 9/11. My goodness. Yeah. Text messages coming in. Jacqueline, I haven't slept. Yeah, last night was a very difficult night. 2124, guys, this is so sad on so many levels. It brought tears to my eyes yesterday afternoon when the news was announced. One of the many things I'm wondering is that since I have conservative bumper stickers and sometimes wear conservative T-shirts, am I now literally a target? Feel free to give us a call, 303-696-1971. Do we want to do news? Or you want to go to the phones first?
Let's chat with Joe a little bit before we get to Blake.
Yeah. Okay.
Because she took the time to call us so early. Let's give her a little bit of room. Joe, you're joining us from Littleton. Talk to us about your thoughts on Charlie and his tragic passing yesterday. What's going through your mind?
Well, first of all, my heart goes out to Jeff. Because he knew him personally. Now, I didn't. I listen to Charlie every day. I'm an old lady, but it's like I was listening. You know, it really gave me some comfort as I was listening to these pastors last night. And I listened to all the basic news, but putting it in a spiritual way, these guys said Charlie reached 85 million people for Christ. And I thought, oh, my dear Lord, what a beautiful person who brought light into this world. And then they said they said this won't be the end. Charlie Kirk, 100 Charlie Kirks will rise up. There'll never be a Charlie Kirk or a Rush Limbaugh, but people will rise up for this. They'll Jeff, like you, and don't put that energy around you, Jeff, that you're a target. You're not a target. You just ask the Holy Spirit to be upon you. God bless this man. That's all I have to say.
Joy.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Appreciate that.
Oh, man, Joe, I appreciate it. I think what hits is on so many levels, right? You have a guy that, for those of us that agreed with it, politics was just wildly effective, and so you love that aspect of him, right? So you're like, that guy is changing things. He's confronting institutions where conservatives have often felt like we have no power, and so on the political side, you enjoy that. But I think what I heard in Joe's voice and what gets so many of us today was you have a man that was a real, authentic, genuinely good man. A Christian whose faith was very sincere. And I want to get, different aspects that we can talk about with regards to Charlie. But I feel like I get the tremendous honor to give you the perspective of a friend who had private conversations about very important things, so you can understand who he really was, okay? I have been around just about every conservative leader in this movement for the last 25 years. I've gotten to know them all, just about every single one of them. We would host roughly 50 speakers a year at the Western Conservative Summit. And so some of my favorite moments are ones that are never publicized, ones that I don't really talk about, just private conversations back behind stage. we had watched Charlie Kirk build Turning Point. He first came and interacted with the Centennial Institute, I believe in 2012 or 2013, right after Romney and all that, and the Republican Party's trying to figure out where it needs to be and what it's all about. So Charlie's young. He's like 18. He shows up. And he speaks at events on our campus. And then as the summit grows, so does his impact. And as I mentioned, Charlie had spoken at just about every Western conservative summit. So I'm sitting backstage with Charlie. And I have this, yes, Gabe Evans. There's a pastoral side that comes out in these private conversations where I just go, tell me how you're really doing, and let's get to brass tacks about what you're really building here. And I just said to Charlie, this entire thing that you're building is going to rest on your character. You act inappropriately. You do this wrong in any capacity, and what you're building with Turning Point, its legacy, all that stuff will just fall apart. And there's been plenty of conservatives that have gotten it wrong, and what they've tried to build never stuck, never stayed. And I think when we reflect back on Charlie Kirk's life, you go, this is a guy who got it right. He was authentically Christian. He was a devoted husband. He was a dedicated father. He did it right. He didn't shame people. He wasn't about mockery. He was genuinely committed to debate, ideas, advancing conservative and Christian principles, sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. And when I look back on those early conversations, and I think it was 2017, maybe 2016, to where we are now and what he was able to build and the legacy, I look back on a friend that I had said to him, Charlie, if you don't have the character, this isn't going to work. And he had the character, and what he built was one of the single most important movements in American history, because he was the real deal. And I can tell you that as somebody who knew him personally and saw it from behind the scenes. Phone calls are coming in. I want to thank you. I want to thank you. This is so important to me to hear from you. It means a lot to me. I'm grateful to Salem for giving me the opportunity this morning to talk, to share my thoughts, to reflect on the impact of Charlie Kirk. Thank you to Kelly. Thank you to Jeff. Thank you to you, Bill, and Blake, and Mark, and Adam, all here giving me the space to do this. This is very important. And we'll get to calls. Let's now get to news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning. Thursday and 64. Cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 88 today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story.
I want to make it crystal clear right now to whoever did this, we will find you. We will try you. And we will hold you accountable to the furthest extent of the law. And I just want to remind people that we still have the death penalty here in the state of Utah.
That's the governor of Utah yesterday. A manhunt continues this morning for the assassin who murdered Charlie Kirk. Authorities released two people they were interested in and interrogated, and there is going to be a press conference coming up in about 45 minutes with the FBI about the Charlie Kirk assassination. So we may be able to go live. I'm kind of editing this here live on the air with Billy. So 7 o'clock this morning, our time, there is a press conference coming up with the FBI. The suspect remains at large, former FBI agent Stuart Kaplan on Fox News with Jesse Waters.
Well, when you take a look at the video and you take a look at the venue and the spectators and how close they are to Charlie Kirk, and then you have that kind of like umbrella over him, that kind of tent, you have to know that this shooter had to be perched in a position with respect to being able to lay his sights perfectly, basically a headshot. And the shot that was taken to immediately incapacitate Charlie Kirk. And so this was not some amateur who just, got up on a rooftop because it was, what I consider spontaneous combustion. He got up this morning and decided he was going to do something crazy. This seems the earmark of a professional that got up onto this rooftop well in advance of the venue being occupied by the spectators. He was clearly undetected. There was no indication that anybody saw him up on this rooftop. Obviously, after that one single shot was taken, he was able to basically very quietly and systematically elude any further detection and escape. There's been no indication that there's been a vehicle identified or any mode of how he actually escaped the venue.
It was a pro. Here's the president.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth. Charlie was also a man of deep, deep faith, and we take comfort in the knowledge that he is now at peace with God in heaven.
Amen. Jesus is King. And Charlie knew that as well as anyone. One Evergreen High School student remains in critical condition after a classmate opened fire at the school on Wednesday.
A student opened fire at the school during lunch hour, leaving 2 of his classmates injured. Jefferson County's Jackie Kelly says investigators are trying to figure out what spurred the violence.
We have a lot of kids to interview. That'll probably help shed a lot of light.
The suspect has died. One victim remains in critical condition with life-threatening injuries, and another is in stable condition. I'm Connor Shreve.
Thank you, Connor. Another sad day in Colorado and across the country. And when you talk about Charlie, it impacted people worldwide. They had a moment of silence for Charlie at the Yankees game last night, and VP JD and his wife headed to Utah today. The nation joins New York City also today, honoring the victims of 9/11, the attacks 24 years later. Family members will read the names of nearly 3,000 lives lost at the 9/11 Memorial in Lower Manhattan, followed by bell tolls and moments of silence. The Supreme Court is allowing a South Carolina transgender student to keep using the boys' bathroom. 14-year-old John Doe sued the state after being suspended for using the bathroom that matches his gender identity. All this stuff is evil. It's designed to destroy what God created in his perfect image. As here is one of Charlie's greatest moments, in my opinion. There were a million of them.
Please explain to everyone out here what Jesus stood for, and especially the qualities of love, how to love your neighbor even if they don't agree with you.
So what is your name again?
Talise.
Talise, that's a beautiful question. I'm glad you came up to ask it. So John 8, if I'm drawing from memory correctly, best embodies both Christ's mercy and love, but also his commitment to truth. And sometimes in the modern gospel, we overemphasize the grace and we underemphasize the truth.
Yeah.
And so we are far too willing to say, hey, Jesus loves everybody, but we don't get to the second part of the conversation that says Jesus doesn't want you to live in sin. So this is, in John 8, it's best embodied, right? Almost every Christian in this audience will be able to tell you the first part of this, which is a bunch of Sadducees and Pharisees are standing around with rocks, and they're about to stone the prostitute woman. And Jesus comes up and says, let the first among you without sin cast the first stone. And everyone starts dropping the rocks. But what comes next shows that Christ is not just grace-focused, he's simultaneously truth-focused. He goes up to the woman who had a career in selling herself for sex and said, sin no more.
Amen. 61 in Westminster, 62 in Littleton, 64 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're going to take the day to remember our good friend, Charlie Kirk, colleague here at Salem Media, the show right after ours, a monumental American figure. And phone lines are open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Let's go to Dwayne and Divide. Good morning, Dwayne. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. I always like to come in a little bit more lighthearted, but today, unfortunately, we have to accept what we have. The thing about Charlie, which was so impressive, I saw him on Varney and Company. And Mr. Varney sat there and said, how old are you? And he said, at the time, in his 20s, and he said, you'd be 35 and 28 to run for president.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an honor that would be really bestowed upon very few people. Charlie had grace.
Dwayne, I was going to say real quick, I think a lot of us saw that. Benny Johnson, who is a good friend of ours too, and I could tell you about how Benny helped transform Turning Point and all that stuff, but Benny posted yesterday that this was the assassination for many of us of a future president. I think we saw him as that influential of a leader and that much potential there, but please continue, Dwayne.
And he had Ruth, which is something that is very rare. But for those who sat there and think they just extinguished a flame, they're sadly mistaken. With 85 million people following him, and now more are going to turn to him to see what everything was about. They got a fire coming that they are not going to be able to put out. And I would like to see the one thing, Jeff, and I'm not trying to be snide or sarcastic, but I will ask this question. Please. Will somebody from the left say anything about gun control about this? Charlie was a monument. Charlie was more than anything else. He's a spot in history that you say, I got to hear him live. I've read his teachings. I've read what he's done. He was humble. He was charismatic at the same time. And he knew at all times that he was blessed by just having a heartbeat. he's going to be missed by a lot of people.
That's absolutely beautiful, Dwayne. Thank you so very much, my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
Dwayne from Divide, his line will be open, 303-696-1971. A good friend of the program. Glad to hear from him this morning. Rich with Gays Against Groomers. Good morning, Rich. Thank you for taking the time.
Good morning.
Hey, thanks. You know, I was just looking at the pictures. I realized what it was. It was a year ago yesterday that I was in Boulder when Charlie Kirk was in Boulder, and I got the opportunity to meet Charlie. And Charlie has also been gracious enough to platform our organization, Gays Against Groomers, and invited us to attend AmFest. So, you know, I think is a genuine person and a great guy. Did we agree on everything? Absolutely not. Do I think that we should have to agree on everything? Absolutely not. And here's another piece of that. Yesterday, I was at the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals having oral arguments in my lawsuit against the Colorado legislature. And ultimately what this lawsuit comes down to and what we're arguing for is the right to be able to speak freely again. And so you can probably imagine how hard it hit to come out of a courtroom and where you're literally arguing for your ability to have disagreements and to speak freely and to engage in civil discourse, to hear about the news of Charlie Kirk. You know, I think one of the things that I will say about this is I hope that in some small way, the fight that I've been carrying on to protect our First Amendment and protect our right to speak is a tribute and an honor to Charlie Kirk. I think it's so important right now that we realize a lot of us are dealing with raw emotion, and we need to think clearly. And I do hope that this is a motivation for a lot of people, because that is exactly what the left wants to do right now, is silence us. And we can't let them do that. And they win the arguments by default when they silence us. And it's so important for us to be able to show up and have calm, logical, fact-based conversations, because that's the only way we're going to win this. This is a war. It's a spiritual battle. I believe that it is a spiritual battle. And the only way these lies are going to keep perpetuating and keep growing is in a vacuum of truth.
Rich, I want to ask you some personal questions and just have your reflection on this. You have chosen to put yourself in a position very similar to what Charlie did, which was to be in places where people don't like your ideas. You face it at the state capitol. You faced it within the Democrat Party, whatever it might be. You've been kicked out of gay bars. You're with Gays Against Groomers. I remember seeing some of those posts where they won't even allow you into a gay bar. What is it about people like you and people like Charlie that are willing to go to places where you are disliked and try to have a conversation?
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up, because my attorney that we have, this is a really big national law firm that's representing us, and he said to me yesterday before the trial, him and the other person that was with me at this case was someone that's pretty big in the Second Amendment movement, and they said to me, Rich, you're well known and you're outspoken. Why don't you have security? And I said, well, I have had events where I have had private security. I was honest about that. And I said, well, honestly, I feel like they're all bark and no bite. And then fast forward 3 hours and you see what's happened. And, of course, you probably have heard about some of the things that have happened to Riley Gaines, Erin Lee up in Wellington with her story, what happened to her right here at DU in Denver. I still don't really worry about it, because I think I have faith that is stronger than this. And yesterday was definitely one of those days where I felt like I was like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Like, you're not going to require me to worship your God. And at the end of the day, what I really believe in is that Charlie Kirk, his assassination, he died as a martyr. And I think that the people that tried to shut him up don't realize that they just created another 1,000 Charlie Kirks.
What is it?
That's what this did to me. This motivated me to speak harder and speak louder. And you know what? If they want to kill me, they can kill me. Because at the end of the day, what's that going to do to them? What's that going to do to their movement? They're not going to win by violence.
Rich, help our audience understand, because I think you and Charlie are unique in this. Why not just live a quiet life? Well, I mean, you could just, you have a job with the state. I think you still do. I don't know, but you did at one point.
Well, who knows after today?
Yeah, right. Why not just live quietly? You could.
Well, you could, but like I said, the only way that these lies and this evil perpetuates is in a vacuum of truth. And we have to speak out. You know, I say this. This is an attack on the family. It is an assault on the foundation of our society. And I've seen it. As I've traveled around and I've talked to people, I've seen the impact that this has had. When I'm talking about gender ideology, I see the impact that it has on individuals. I've seen the impact that it has on families. I've seen the impact that it has on communities and our society. And we have to protect that. And that is only going to happen when people speak the truth. And this is one of those things that there's pivotal moments in each generation's life. I remember where I was at on 9/11. I was living in Brooklyn at the time. I think my parents talk about how they can remember where they were at when JFK was assassinated or when Martin Luther King was assassinated. And I will say, I think this is Gen Z's Martin Luther King moment. This is their 9/11 moment. And I think this is going to wake a lot of people up, and I think it's going to encourage a lot more people to speak the truth. Because if we don't, we are not allowed to have civil discourse. Society is going to collapse. And I'm not afraid to say that. I'm not afraid to speak the truth. You know, I look at it this way, and people are like, I don't know how I can keep going. And I said, Stephen preached one sermon before he was murdered.
You're exactly right. Rich, you are a gift. You're a gem. I know it's not easy to walk where you walk, but you, as you pointed out, are willing to build those coalitions, to have those conversations. And from me to you, brother, thank you for taking time this morning. Thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thanks for calling. Appreciate it.
Yep.
It's nice to hear your voice.
Thanks.
That's Rich with Gays Against Groomers. We're taking calls today, reflecting on the life, the impact of Charlie Kirk, what we do now, what happened yesterday. How did you feel? What are you thinking? All that this morning, wide open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's go to Joan in Lakewood. Good morning, Joan. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Good morning.
Good morning. The first thing I want to say is that I did get up early and listen to Charlie Segal, and I spoke about this with him. And he read an email that was sent from your CEO, David Centrella. And I just am so grateful that Salem Radio is here and gives us this platform. And they don't know what blessing they are, because people say to me, what do we do? Where do we go next? And I can say that, you know, there are places where there are like-minded people and that we need to be bold and we need to speak out. So I remember exactly where I was on 9/11. And then 3 years ago, Officer Vykoff was killed in Arvada. And there's a large number of his friends and family that are running up and down the steps at Red Rocks in remembrance of him and of 9/11. And what gives me hope, what gives me a lot of hope is I have a good friend who's a professor at CU, and he's working with Turning Point USA in Boulder at CU, and they had planned a meeting tonight because they wanted the people there to know and remember with 9/11, and I think that he's right. This is going to be this generation's 9/11, and it is an awful thing that happened.
Tell us, Joan, why you think it's so important to conservatives to put this in the category, and I don't think you're wrong, but to put this in the category of an MLK assassination or 9/11 or what happened there. Those were defining moments in American history. To conservatives, why is Charlie Kirk's death in those categories?
Well, first of all, the devil, we are making such progress. We are winning so much that the devil is just kicking out so hard. And the woman who was murdered in North Carolina on the train, I'm going to slaughter her name, Arena. I'm not even going to try her last name. If you go and see those videos, there's blood. There is blood everywhere. And I was watching with Charlie, and there was blood. There was blood everywhere. And the saddest thing about Charlie was there was no ambulance there because nobody thought anybody would hurt him that bad. So they had to carry him into a car and take him to a hospital. And I'm sitting here going, as a healthcare professional, would he have lived if he had had better people? And the people that are running at Red Rock right now, those people, the death of Officer Vyckoff was really crystallizing and making them realize what you believe matters. And that is why this is going to be such a crystallizing moment in our young people's minds, because I know of a lot of young people, and Charlie was reaching out here into Colorado, and he sent 2 representatives, and one of his representatives, Lena, just got here 4 weeks ago, and she was designated to be here in Jefferson County because Charlie knew that we're here and we're working hard and that we are on the cusp, and we have to keep standing up, and we have to keep speaking. And these young people that I know were saying to me, there are people on the other side that are just going, what is this? And then I do an awful lot of work on Nextdoor, and here in Jefferson, Lakewood, Nextdoor is pretty left-leaning. And yesterday, there was this gentleman who wrote on Nextdoor, and he wrote, I may have disagreed with 90% of the things he said, but no one deserves the political violence, and the political violence has no place in our heart. I think that this is going to be defining for a lot of younger people, because I don't think they've seen this kind of violence. We've seen it. We saw it on 9/11. I saw this Officer Vyckoff.
And I think for older generations who watched Martin Luther King assassinated, Robert F. Kennedy assassinated, JFK assassinated, it was a moment, from my perspective, looking back at those times, where you watched a generation lose part of its innocence, its optimism. You know, there was so much hope behind the work that was being done with those men. It was an excitement. There was a youthfulness. There was an optimism about the future of America. And then very publicly, before the eyes of the whole country, you lose that innocence. Here you have a young father, 31 years old, who had built a movement with his own hands. You know, he didn't inherit Turning Point. He built it. He went to those meetings. He made those speeches at small gatherings for years as it built momentum. And then to have it peak in the 2024 election, I think Donald Trump's not elected without Charlie Kirk. I think he is changing a place that many conservatives were afraid to ever walk into, had just given up on with these universities. He was having hard conversations. He put himself out there. There was a sense of hope and optimism among conservatives, and it was shattered yesterday. Joan Lakewood, I sure appreciate your call. Joan's line will be open 303-696-1971. She mentioned the statement from David Centrell. I think it's probably appropriate to read it. This is from the Chief Executive Officer of Salem Media Group. And remember that Charlie wasn't just somebody we knew in the movement, wasn't just a personal friend. He was a colleague. His show was the one right after our show. And so I often listened to Charlie on the way home from this program. I would consider what Charlie was talking about and how we led up to Charlie. It was a part of our work life. It was part of our personal life. It was part of our political life.
Yeah, and I stick around after the show a little bit. I've got some stuff to do, some I's to dot and T's to cross. So, yeah, I caught his show on the regular. So this is losing a friend. Not only is he the guy that follows us, but it's a voice that I heard Monday through Friday, listen to him, listen to a lot of the stuff that he did on video. Yeah, this is the loss of a friend today. This is hard.
This is the statement from the Chief Executive Officer of Salem Media Group sent to all of us yesterday afternoon. Salem family, it is with profound sorrow we mourn the tragic passing of Charlie Kirk following today's horrific assassination attack at Utah Valley University. This is a cowardly and vile act of violence carried out to silence one of America's boldest Christian conservative voices. Our hearts are shattered for Charlie's wife, family, friends, colleagues, and the countless people whose lives he touched through his words, his work, and his unwavering commitment to faith and country. Charlie was more than a broadcaster. He was a fearless defender of truth and a faithful servant of God. This assassination was not just an attack on Charlie. It was an attack on free speech and on the values Charlie championed every day. His absence leaves a tremendous void, but his legacy of faith, courage, and conviction will continue to inspire generations. Charlie's partnership with Salem Media was defined by his uncompromising defense of biblical values, liberty, and truth. He epitomized Salem's mission to, quote, impact lives and communities by amplifying truth, faith, and self-governance through media, unquote. We are blessed to have worked with such a man as Charlie and to have watched him grow into the legacy he became. Salem extends its most heartfelt condolences to the Kirk family, Charlie's friends, and the millions of Americans and people across the world who are grieving this senseless loss. We're going to take time today to reflect on Charlie, where we go from here, the impact he had. It's also the anniversary of 9/11, if you have thoughts on that. Also yesterday, the shooting of two innocent students in Evergreen High School, and then the taking of his own life, the shooter there. So lots to cover, lots of evil, but more importantly, lots of goodness in the world. And for me, to the listeners of this great program, to hear from you would mean a lot today. So feel free to pick up the phone. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Hard day for the Salem family. Hard day for a lot of us who knew Charlie Kirk personally. Assassinated yesterday. Charlie was, I can tell you guys this, and I wouldn't say it otherwise. Charlie Kirk was the real deal. A man of tremendous character, a devoted husband, father. He was accessible. He made a giant impact. America was a better place for him, and we're all mourning his loss today. We're taking phone calls from political leaders who've been impacted by what he's built. We're taking phone calls from listeners, and the phone lines they're jam-packed, which is just beautiful. And as somebody who knew Charlie very, very well, to see the outpouring of support that's coming is helping me. So thank you all. Let's go to Representative Brandi Bradley, who joins us this morning. Representative, it means a lot to us to have your time this morning.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
Good morning, guys. Jeff, I mean, you were obviously one of the first people that I thought of to call. Yeah, what a tragic day for a lot of people, but especially my 4 boys. Boy, they are just really impacted right now. Charlie Kirk showed that there could be cheerful debates, colorful debates. He made me a better person. I definitely strive to be more like him. He was such an intelligent man, and I told my husband if I could have 1/10 of his intelligence, I would just be so thankful. And we are just mourning in our household as well. So
I'm intrigued by what your boys are going through. We've heard from other people that this is a generational assassination that took place yesterday on the level of an RFK or a JFK or an MLK, where people from that generation were changed, that there was a loss of innocence, that there was a loss of optimism and hope. I mean, you don't have to, but these I would love to hear the conversations you're having with your boys, what you're seeing as a mom reflected in the hearts of those young men this morning.
It was kind of like a 9/11 moment for me. You know, we all knew what we were doing, or a Challenger moment when the Challenger exploded and you're sitting there watching it take off. And, you know, my children just looked at me. Now they see the hate in this world. I got a death threat again last night. So they see it, but this is such a personal level. We watched Charlie Kirk videos together, and they just cannot believe that there's so much hate in this world that you can take an innocent life because you disagree with someone. They can't fathom it. They just don't understand it. So it's it's a little bit of their loss of innocence right now. It shows them that there's an evil in this world, and that's why we have to stick close to our faith and know that this is not our eternal life. But yeah, they're really sad, and it's sad for me because I can't shield them from the hate in this world. For the people who are just trying to shed truth, right? Charlie was just speaking truth. He wasn't being hateful. He's not a bigot. He's not a fascist. He was trying to spread the truth. And some people can't hear that. And so you take his life for doing those things. I mean, I don't understand the world that we live in right now, and thankful for my faith.
I want to ask you if you could help our listeners understand what it's like to be in your position where, like Charlie, you go down to a place where you have no control, no power. You're outweighed by people with opposing views. Every day when you serve in the state legislature, you try to advocate. You do it respectfully. You do it before all of them. You try to convince them. And to watch somebody in the same movement of yours lose their life for doing that. What's going through your mind this morning about the work that you do?
It's terrifying, right? It's terrifying to want to stand for truth, and you just never know. I mean, my kids' schools have been posted. My address has been posted. They have come after me, saying that I will burn in hell. I just had a death threat last night. You know, it is terrifying, but we will not be shaken. stop what I'm doing. I have an audience of one, and I know what is right and what is Colorado. Continue because I stand in fear. It will not happen. And if my dismay is going to be, or if my life is going to be taken because I'm standing for truth, then so be it.
And I think Representative Bradley, we're just up against a break. I think Charlie had that same value. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
NUS.